Hallelujah. Giving praise and honor to Yehovah our God, the King of the universe. Thanking Him for our lives and the opportunity to call upon His name, knowing that He is the creator of the heavens and the earth, and that besides Him there is no God. And we thank Him also for the opportunity to open up His word, the Holy Scriptures, to be able to read within His word so that we may obtain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And also for us, the nation of Yisrael, to understand our history, and especially in the portion that we will be reading at this time, the portion called Beha'Alotecha, found in the book of Numbers chapter 8, concluding with chapter 12. And in this portion, the nation of Yisrael is still in the wilderness, still in the desert. And in this portion, we're going to see our journey from Mount Sinai throughout the wilderness. So basically in this portion, we're going to get some final instructions from the Most High God before we leave Mount Sinai, because we received a lot of instructions, the commandments that we should live by. Or the Levites received their portion, the priests received their portion, and their coronation as well. And now the nation of Israel, after being numbered, will go forth in their journey in the wilderness. So we're going to begin in this portion once again called Beha'Alotecha, which means when you lift up. And in the translation, it will say when you light the lamp, because in the Hebrew, when you lift up, with God talking to Aaron, the priest, telling him that when he lift up the lights, or as they translate in the English, when you light the lamps, that's basically the translation of Beha'Alotecha, once again meaning when you lift up. So we'll begin in the book of Numbers, also known as Bamidbar, chapter 8, verse 1.
The book of Numbers, chapter 8, verse 1. Aaron lights the lamps. And Yehovah spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron, and say unto him, When thou lightest the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give light in front of the candlestick. And Aaron did so. He lighted the lamps thereof so as to give light in the front of the candlestick, as Yehovah commanded Moses. And this was the work of the candlestick, beaten work of gold, unto the base thereof, unto the flowers thereof. It was beaten work, according unto the pattern which Yehovah has shown Moses, so he made the candlestick.
So where we read here is basically a reiteration of what was read in Exodus chapter 25 concerning the construction of the candlestick known as the menorah in Hebrew, and how Aaron was commanded to light the lamps upon the candlestick. There was a certain direction, a certain way that he was commanded, as the Most High God has told him that he should light the lamp, give light in the front of the candlestick. Basically in the Hebrew it gives a better explanation, meaning that he lights towards the face of the candlestick, or towards the menorah, in terms of, lighting it towards the middle of the menorah. So he had a certain way that he had, and also the high priest and all the priests that would always light the menorah every evening to keep it lit from evening to morning. They had a prescribed way that they had to light the menorah each and every day. That even though, and it gives a description of the menorah itself and the stems that come forth out of it. It just gives a brief description. And once again, when you read Exodus chapter 25, it gives the more descriptive description of the menorah or the candlestick. So here, but the main thing here is that Aaron, the high priest, is given a command on how he should light the menorah. And once again, related to the previous books, we see how the menorah or the candlestick itself was constructed.
Verse 5. Consecration of the Levites. And Yehovah spoke unto Moses, saying, Take the Levites from among the children of Israel, and cleanse them, and thus shalt thou do unto them, to cleanse them. Sprinkle the water of purification upon them, and let them cause a razor to pass over all their flesh, and let them wash their clothes and cleanse themselves. Then let them take a young bullock and its meal offering, fine flour mingled with oil, and another young bullock shalt thou take for a sin offering. And thou shalt present the Levites before the tent of meeting, and thou shalt assemble the whole congregation of the children of Israel, and thou shalt present the Levites before Yehovah. And the children of Israel shall lay their hands upon the Levites, and Aaron shall offer the Levites before Yehovah for a wave offering from the children of Israel, that they may be to do the service of Yehovah. And the Levites shall lay their hands upon the heads of the bullocks, and offer thou the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering unto Yehovah, to make atonement for the Levite. And thou shalt set the Levites before Aaron and before his sons, and offer them for a wave offering unto Yehovah. Thus shalt thou separate the Levites from among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine.
So relating earlier into the book of Numbers, that we read that the Levites were separated from the rest of the nation of Israel, that they weren't numbered amongst the other tribes because God has taken them to himself, and they have a specific service when we go through the previous two portions in the book of Numbers, where we read about the families of the Levites and their portions and the things that they had to do. So now we're going to read about their consecration, because before they had the opportunity to go forth with their work. As we read with the priests, God also has a specific ritual on how the Levites should be consecrated, or in other words, coronated before him, so that they may fulfill their duties. So basically, as we read throughout the book of Numbers as well, we see that everything is not in chronological order. We're all relating to everything that's in the second year after coming out of Egypt, but we read in the beginning of the book where it's already in the second month, but the coronation of the Levites was in the first month, because they had to be consecrated first before they could take on their tasks. So now this chapter is basically relating, the ritual that the Levites had to go through, and basically it gives a description of them being presented as a wave offering before the Most High God. Not that literally Moses and Aaron, lifted up all of the Levites, but it was just a way of describing how the Levites were wholly given unto the Most High God as an offering unto him. And as we read on, we're going to see once again that they were put in that position to take place of all the firstborn of the nation of Yisrael.
Verse 15, and after that shall the Levites go in to do the service of the tent of meeting, and thou shalt cleanse them, and offer them for a wave offering. For they are wholly given unto me from among the children of Israel, instead of all that openeth the womb. Even the firstborn of all the children of Israel have I taken them unto me. For all the firstborn among the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself. And I have taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel. And I have given the Levites, they are given to Aaron and to his sons from among the children of Israel, to do the service of the children of Israel in the tent of meeting, and to make atonement for the children of Israel, that there be no plague among the children of Israel, through the children of Israel coming nigh unto the sanctuary. Verse 20, thus did Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the Levites, according unto all that Jehovah commanded Moses touching the Levites, so did the children of Israel unto them. And the Levites purified themselves, and they washed their clothes, and Aaron offered them for a sacred gift before Jehovah, and Aaron made atonement for them to cleanse them. And after that went the Levites in to do their service in the tent of meeting before Aaron and before his sons, as Jehovah had commanded Moses concerning the Levites, so did they unto them.
So basically we read here that the Levites did go through their process of purification, because the work that they're doing is holy work. They're transporting the tent of meeting, or the tabernacle, throughout the wilderness. They're the ones that are responsible for taking it down and putting it back up. And also, even in the land of Yisrael, as it mentions here, the Levites are the ones responsible for guarding the tent of meeting. And later on, when King Solomon built the temple, the Levites were responsible for guarding the temple as well. Because their position now is that God had already sanctified all of the firstborn of the nation of Yisrael unto himself. But now the Levites take the place of the firstborn, and that's one of the ways that the firstborn are redeemed from the Most High God back to the parents, along with the 5 shekels that the parents that would have to give as a cost of redemption. So the Levites now taking that place. They're responsible for guarding the temple, guarding the tent of meeting, guarding the tabernacle, so that the children of Israel don't go forth and go into areas that they're not supposed to go into. So basically the responsibility of the Levites now is, along with praising the Most High God, they have to help the priests with their functions, and they also protect the nation of Israel, so that the nation of Israel doesn't have a plague. We don't have a plague come upon us when we go forth to the temple unclean, or try to do things that we're not supposed to do, going too close to the altar, try to actually put an offering on the altar itself. The Levites are there to stand guard, to make sure that everyone is sanctified and everyone treats the temple grounds as sanctified.
Verse 23, age of service of Levites. And Jehovah spoke unto Moses, saying, this is that which pertaineth unto the Levites, from 20 and 5 years old and upward, they shall go in to perform the service in the work of the tent of meeting. And from the age of 50 years, they shall return from the service of the work, and shall serve no more, but shall minister with their brethren in the tent of meeting, to keep the charge, but they shall do no manner of service. Thus shalt thou do unto the Levites touching their charges.
So in the previous portions, we read about the families of the Levites and the responsibilities that they had to do, each family, with their own task, concerning what they would carry of the tent of meeting, and concerning, what they would transport, concerning how, what they would take down and what they would put up. But now we get the ages of the Levites, for them to go forth to do that work. So the ages that are specified here are 25 to 50. So once a Levite, enters the age of 25 years old, he's responsible for certain tasks that, the Levites would have to take on. And when he reaches the age of 50, then he could step away from those tasks. But he doesn't fully retire, because it mentions that at 50, that they would still be there to minister. Basically, they're there as supervisors, they're there to help out, they're there to instruct. But they're not, after the age of 50, the Levite, at that age is not responsible for carrying or, taking on any burdens or tasks that they would be doing between the ages of 25 and 50. Also, we read early in the earlier portions that the Levites were only numbered from the ages of 30 through 50. So what most people say is that from the age of 25 to 30, that's basically the years that they would be basically an apprentice, where they would learn their responsibilities, learn their tasks. They're not numbered amongst those that are actually doing the task until the age of 30. Once again, going to the previous chapters, the previous portions in the book of Numbers, where each family of the Levites was numbered from 30 years to 50. But here it mentions that at age 25 they can go forth to the work. So once again, people say that that's the those 5 years are where they start getting their training, and basically depending on the family that they belong to, they will learn what it is that particular family's responsibility is, so that they don't just get to the age where they can work and just jump directly into the work. So once again, they're only numbered from the age of 30 to 50 for those that are doing the work, but they can enter into the service of what the Levites are supposed to do from the age of 25, learning their task. And that once again, at the age of 50, basically they step back and let those that are younger than them carry all the burdens and carry all the on those tasks, but they're still there to assist. The priests still there to assist other Levites as well, and still responsible for supervising and making sure everything is in order, because the Levites that are coming up after them, they have to make sure that their tasks are taken care of properly as well.
Chapter 9, verse 1. Passover commanded. And Yahweh spoke unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year, after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel keep the Passover in its appointed season. In the 14th day of this month at dusk, ye shall keep it in its appointed season, according to all the statutes of it, and according to all the ordinances thereof shall ye keep it. And Moses spoke unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover in the first month on the 14th day of the month at dusk, in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahweh commanded Moses. So did the children of Israel. So
up until this point, once again in the book of Numbers, we're going back to the first month. Once again, everything, beginning chapters are not in chronological order. The book of Numbers started with God telling Moses to number the tribes of the nation of Israel. But now we're going back to the first month, and we read a lot of things that took place in that first month. Going back to the book of Leviticus, we read that the tabernacle itself was anointed by Moses, that the priests themselves were anointed, and that they were put in their position. All of this took place on the first day of the first month of that second year when we came out of the land of Egypt. And now, we read in the portion of Not So of how the 12 princes, one prince from each of the 12 tribes came forth and brought their offerings from the first day even up until the 12th day of that first month. So a lot of things, took place, within those first 12 days, with the 7 days of the priests being anointed and being coronated, with the Levites being cleansed and their, atonement being made for them so that they could take on their duties. And once again, the princes bringing forth their offerings. So now everything is complete, but before we journey on, God has commanded the nation of Israel to keep the Passover. So even in the wilderness, the nation of Israel had to keep the Passover, after coming out of the land of Egypt and before going into the land of Canaan, which, later on became the land of Yisrael, that even in the wilderness, God is commanding that the nation of Israel keep the Passover in its appointed time. And the Passover itself, the Pesach, as it is said in Hebrew, is that offering, the offering of that lamb that is slaughtered, at dusk of the 14th day of the first month on the Hebrew calendar. So God commanded that be done. And to get the specifics of, everything that goes along, all the statutes of the Passover offering, we go back to Exodus chapter 12 and Exodus chapter 13, where all of the statutes are related in those two chapters concerning the offering itself. So when it's talking about Passover or Pesach, once again, it's talking specifically about the offering of that lamb that is slaughtered at dusk on the 14th day of the first month. And then that night, that's when the children of Israel would eat of that lamb. So once again, reading that we could keep the Passover outside of the land of Israel, even in the wilderness, the nation of Israel kept, that second Passover in the wilderness.
Verse 6, but there were certain men who were unclean by the dead body of a man, so that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, we are unclean by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we to be kept back, so as not to bring the offering of Yahweh in its appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto them, stay ye, that I may hear what Yahweh will command concerning you. So
the commandment went out that the children of Israel has to keep the Passover offering in the wilderness, and there were men that were unclean by the dead. We read more about being unclean by a dead body in Numbers chapter 19. But, in short, a person that comes in contact with a dead body, there's a water, which is called a water of purification, which has to be sprinkled upon that person on the third day and on the seventh day of them coming in contact with a dead body, and then they become clean. So in the course of a year of us coming out of Egypt and dwelling in the wilderness, there were people that died. So people may have, these people that have come in contact with a dead body, they had to, they're probably in the room or the tent where somebody died, or they were involved with the burial process of somebody in the wilderness. But whatever the reason was, during this time when the Passover offering was supposed to be offered, and the statutes of it, once again, is that a person has to be clean, when they partake of it, relating back to Exodus chapters 12 and 13, a person has to be clean. And that, of course, goes for any offering when we read throughout the book of Leviticus. So these men, because this is the offering that only takes place once a year, and it's an offering that commemorates how God passed over the land of Egypt, slaying all of the firstborn, and he saved us alive, that these men, this was not something that they voluntarily, became unclean for. This is something that, a responsibility that they had to take on, or something happened around them, but they didn't want to be left out of celebrating basically the independence of the nation of Israel. So they went forth to Moses and they went forth to Aaron in order to find out a way of where they could basically celebrate this Passover offering, knowing that they can't partake of that offering in their uncleanness, but they wanted to find out if there's a way that they would still be able to celebrate and keep the statutes of the Most High God.
Verse 9, a second Passover is allowed. And Yahweh spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your generation shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yahweh. And the second month, on the 14th day at dusk, they shall keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break a bone thereof. According to all the statute of the Passover they shall keep it. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, that soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of Yahweh in his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto Yahweh, according to the statute of the Passover, and according to the ordinance thereof, so shall he do. Ye shall have one statute both for the stranger and for him that is home, and for him that is born in the land.
So God gave the provision that on the 14th day of the second month, that a person that was unclean by a dead body in that first month when the Passover offering was presented, those that were on a journey, that would, because once again, talking about Passover is talking about the offering. It's not necessarily talking about the period of time, but it's talking about that particular offering. So someone may not have been in the location where the offering, would be prescribed, which is the place where God has caused, his name to be called, which we know as, at this time, the tent of meeting, and we know in the land of Yisrael, that was the temple that King Solomon built unto the Most High God, that's the only place where offerings, and especially, the Passover offering, could be presented before the Most High God. So those are the parameters to where someone was not able to keep it in the first month, they're able to keep it in the second month, and they have to keep it with the same ordinances, not breaking a bone, it's roasted whole. Everything that pertained to the ordinances of the first month has to be kept in the second month. They have to eat it with the bitter herbs and the unleavened bread as well. But we don't read anything about the Feast of Unleavened Bread itself being, transferred to the second month, because that will always be in the first month. The 15th day of the first month in the Hebrew calendar begins the Feast of Unleavened Bread, also known as Chag Matzot, for those 7 days. So even if a person is far away from the temple where he can't partake of the Passover offering, even though somebody's unclean by a dead body, during that first month, they still have to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread by not eating leavened bread for those 7 days in that first month. It's only the Passover offering that could be presented in the second month if someone is not able to do so because of a journey or being unclean by the dead. And as God specifies, if someone neglected to keep the Passover offering in the first month, and they're not on a journey or they weren't unclean, then they have to bear their iniquity, because the nation of Israel is commanded to keep the Passover on the 14th day of that first month, to commemorate the fact that God passed over Egypt and he brought us out of Egypt with that great deliverance. So that's why we celebrate that year unto year. Even without an offering, we still have to acknowledge the fact that God brought us out of Egypt and he saved us alive, during that period of time.
A cloud guides the Israelites, verse 15. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, even the tent of testimony. At the even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until morning. So it was always. The cloud covered it, and the appearance of fire by night. And whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tent, then after that the children of Israel journeyed, and the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel encamped. At the commandment of Yahweh the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of Yahweh they encamped. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they remained encamped. And when the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of Yahweh, and journeyed not. And sometimes the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of Yahweh they remained encamped, and according to the commandment of Yahweh they journeyed. And sometimes the cloud was from evening unto morning, and when the cloud was taken up in the morning, they journeyed. Or if it continued by day and by night, when the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. Whether it were 2 days or a month or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle abiding thereon, the children of Israel remained in camp and journeyed not. But when it was taken up, they journeyed. At the commandment of Yahweh, they encamped. At the commandment of Yahweh, they journeyed. They kept the charge of Yahweh at the commandment of Yahweh by the hand of Moses.
So basically, that was just commentary describing how the nation of Israel journeyed in the wilderness. That we know that after coming out of the land of Egypt, that we were led by a pillar of fire by day, and then at night, that pillar of a cloud turned into fire. So it's just basically reiterating that point, that we were led throughout the wilderness with a pillar of a cloud by day and a pillar of a fire by night. And it also let us know that we only journeyed when that cloud lifted up. And basically, that was God showing us the direction that we should travel throughout the desert, from Mount Sinai going into the land of Yisrael. So basically, this was just a commentary and just giving an insight on how the nation of Israel journeyed throughout the desert, throughout the wilderness, And we know that, it became a 40-year journey. So that's why I mentioned here that whether it was a day, whether it was 2 days, or whether it was a year or more, wherever that pillar of a cloud, abode, the nation of Israel dwelt, at that location until that pillar raised up, and then we followed that cloud until we got to our next destination in the wilderness, and we did so all throughout our journey in the wilderness. So we didn't go ahead of the cloud, and we didn't, stay back, when the cloud journeyed forth. We've basically followed the instructions of the Most High God, and that was the way that He led us throughout the wilderness, coming out of Egypt, going into the land of Canaan, to the land that He would allow us to inherit in the merit of our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So once again, this was just commentary just to show how the nation of Israel journeyed, and then as we go on, even in this portion, we're going to read about our actual journey from Mount Sinai and the stages that we went through in the wilderness.
Book of Numbers, chapter 10, verse 1. Use of the trumpets of silver. And Yahweh spoke unto Moses, saying, Make thee 2 trumpets of silver, of beaten work shalt thou make them. And they shall be unto thee for a calling of the congregation, and for causing the camps to set forward. And when they shall blow with them, all the congregation shall gather themselves unto thee at the door of the tent of meeting. And if they blow but with one, then the princes, the heads of the thousands of Israel, shall gather themselves unto thee. And when ye blow an alarm, the camps that lie on the east side shall take their journey. And when ye blow an alarm the second time, the camps that lie on the south side shall set forward. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys. But when the assembly is to be gathered together, ye shall blow, but ye shall not sound an alarm. And the sons of Aaron the priest shall blow with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for a statute forever throughout your generations. And when ye go to war in your land against the adversary that oppresseth you, then ye shall sound an alarm with the trumpets, and ye shall be remembered before Jehovah your God, and ye shall be safe from your enemies. Also in the day of your gladness, and in your appointed seasons, and in your new moons, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, and they shall be to you for a memorial before your God. I am Jehovah your God.
So this is talking about trumpets that God commanded to be built. So God commanded Moses that the nation of Israel construct 2 silver trumpets of beaten work, basically, one piece. Basically they took the silver, beat it out to make, the 2 trumpets. So basically the trumpets, each trumpet was basically, one whole piece, and not, soldered together or anything like that. It was just beaten, and it was, shaped out of those silver pieces. And the purpose of these 2 silver trumpets is that the priest would blow with these trumpets for certain occasions. And it describes the occasions here, such as when the princes of the tribes were to gather together, that they will blow the trumpets a certain way. And it describes, the different ways that the trumpets will be blown, and the nation of Israel would hear, and they will understand that when the trumpets are blown a certain way, what the responsibilities, they would take on. So when the trumpets are blown a certain way, the princes would know that call is just for them to gather together. When it's blown a certain way, then the tribes would know that that's the time for them to pack up and to start moving. And they would blow, for each camp, because, going back to the portion of Bamidbar in the beginning of the book of Numbers, we read about how the 12 tribes encamp around the tent of meeting. 3 tribes, in each formation, east, south, west, and north. And that's the way that they journeyed. So when it's blown, after it was blown in a certain way where the nation of Israel know that they're going to journey forth, then it's blown so that the camp on the east side would journey, first. That is blown another time, so that the camp on the south would journey behind them. And then it doesn't, specify, but we know that the other camp still followed behind as well. But we also know and understand that the tent of meeting followed the camp that was in the south, and then it was blown another time where the camps that dwelt in the west journeyed forth, and then blown another time where the camps on the north journeyed forth. And it was also blown, during the holy days. on the Sabbath day, and all of the appointed times and appointed seasons that we read about in the book of Leviticus chapter 23, God commanded that the silver trumpets be blown on those occasions as well, and also over all of the offerings, the daily burnt offerings and all of the offerings that people would bring up, throughout the year. The trumpets would be blown, during those occasions as well. So, and that was the responsibility of the priests to do so. So everybody, would know and understand that when the trumpets are blown a certain way, whether it's an alarm or whether it's not, whatever that sound is, is being done, they would know exactly what they have to do.
Verse 11, the Israelites moved from Sinai to Paran. And it came to pass in the second year, in the second month, from the 20th day of the month, that the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle of the testimony. And the children of Israel set forward by their stages out of the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud abode in the wilderness of Paran. And they took their first journey according to the commandment of Yahweh, by the hand of Moses. And in the first place the standard of the camp of the children of Judah set forward according to their host, and over his host was Nachshon the son of Amminadab. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Issachar was Nathanael the son of Zuar. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Zebulun was Eliab the son of Helon. And the tabernacle was taken down, and the sons of Gershom and the sons of Merari, who bore the tabernacle, set forward, and the standard of the camp of Reuben set forward according to their host. And over his host was Elazar the son of Shedi-Ur. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Simeon was Shalumiel the son of Zurishaddai. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Gad was Eliasaph the son of Deuel. And the Kohathites, the bearers of the sanctuary, set forward, that the tabernacle might be set up against their coming. And the standard of the camp of the children of Ephraim set forward according to their host. And over his host was Elishama the son of Amihud. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Manasseh was Gamaliel the son of Pedasur. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Ben-Binyamin was Abidan the son of Gideoni. And the standard of the camp of the children of Dan, which was the rearward of all the camps, set forward according to their host. And over his host was Ahiezer the son of Ammishaddai. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Asher was Pagiel the son of Okran. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Naphtali was Ahira the son of Enan. Thus were the journeyings of the children of Israel according to their host, and they set forward.
So we get to the point now where it says in the second month, basically in that second year of us coming out of Egypt, on the 20th day of that month, that's when we first journeyed from Mount Sinai, from Mount Koreb, as it's also known as, on our first, for the first time after leaving Egypt and dwelling at that place for that period of months. Now we're going forth on our journey. So we know that the trumpets were blown as it was given in the description that it should be blown a certain way when the camp is going forth. And also we know that we're following the pillar of the cloud, or if we left at night or journeying at night, it was a pillar of fire at that time, and the nation of Israel journeyed. And basically the camps traveled according to the specifications that was given early in the book of Numbers of how the camps should encamp around the tent of meeting and how they should journey forth. And even during that time, while the camps are journeying forth, the Gershonites, the Merarites, and the Kohathites, the families of the Levites, they go into their responsibilities and going to carry the things that they have to carry as well. So everybody's in place. God gave everybody enough time to know and understand how we should journey in the wilderness. Everybody knows their formation by their tribes and by, the campments, because there was 4 camps and then 3 tribes within each camp, and then the families within the tribes as well. So everybody already knew their formations. They knew the instructions that they had to follow, and the cloud lifted up, the trumpets were blown, and everybody journeyed forth from Mount Sinai for that first time, as God is going to give us the land of Canaan as an inheritance. We're going to read in the book of Numbers that it took us a while to get there, but this is our first journey because God, is still completing that mission of giving us the land of Canaan as a possession, because that's what he promised Abraham, our father, that land will belong to the children of Israel.
Verse 29, Moses invites Hobab to go with the Israelites. And Moses said unto Hobab, the son of Reuel the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, we are journeying unto the place of which Yahweh said, I will give it you. Come thou with us, and we will do thee good. For Jehovah has spoken good concerning Israel. And he said unto him, I will not go, but I will depart to my own land and to my kindred. And he said, Leave us not, I pray thee, for as much as thou knowest how we are to encamp in the wilderness, and thou shalt be to us instead of us. And it shall be, if thou go with us, yea, it shall be that what good soever Jehovah shall do unto us, the same will we do unto thee.
So it mentions here Hobab, which, based on the genealogy, would be Moses' brother-in-law. Because we read that Reuel, sometimes known as Jethro, is Moses' father-in-law. When we go back to the book of Exodus, chapter 18, and so most of the, most people would say and agree that Reuel is Jethro. So therefore, the son of Reuel, being Hobab, would be Moses' brother-in-law. So they spent some time in the wilderness, because we know also that Jethro brought to Moses, his wife Zipporah, and Moses' children, once we got to Mount Sinai. So now that we're leaving from Mount Sinai and everybody's packing up and journeying, Moses is, encouraging his brother-in-law to basically travel with them. At first, Hobab, he's reluctant. He says, he'd rather dwell in his own place. But Moses, tells him that, you know the wilderness. You know what we're going to, travel through. Basically, this is Moses encouraging Hobab to journey with them, because Moses already know and understand that God is going before the nation of Israel. So it's not that we literally need eyes in the wilderness, because God is the eyes for the nation of Israel as we travel, and he's making sure all of our journeys are safe. But he's just encouraging his brother-in-law, because whatever relationship that they had in the wilderness where they became close, Moses didn't want to depart from his brother-in-law. So he convinced him to go, with him as, they go forth. And we read more about, not specifically Hobab himself, but we read about Hobab's descendants dwelling in the land of Yisrael in the book of Judges, namely in chapter 4. We read about Hobab's descendants who are dwelling in the land of Yisrael. So we see from here, and connecting with there, that Hobab himself journeyed with the nation of Yisrael through the wilderness, going into the land of Yisrael.
Verse 33, the cloud is over the Israelites, and they set forward from the mount of Jehovah 3 days' journey. And the ark of the covenant of Jehovah went before them 3 days' journey, to seek out a resting place for them. And the cloud of Jehovah was over them by day, when they set forward from the camp.
So basically, just telling us that from that first journey, basically it was a 3-day journey from Mount Sinai to the next location. The cloud just kept going, while we journeyed for those 3 days. Basically God is looking for a resting place for the nation of Israel, because we're quite a few million, possibly 3 million people out there at this time. So as we journey through the wilderness, God is making sure that we find a place where we can rest. The tribes could spread out in their formations. The tent of meeting could find a resting place where it's level and it could be constructed, properly, and then everything is in place, and also the nation of Israel could be taken care of in that next location.
35, Moses' prayer to Jehovah. And it came to pass, when the ark set forward, that Moses said, Rise up, O Jehovah, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Jehovah, unto the 10,000s of the families of Yisrael. So, as the nation of Israel journeyed in the wilderness, when we set forth, when the pillar of cloud lifted up, when the trumpets were blown so that the nation of Israel knows the formation that they should journey forth, Moses gave forth a prayer that God would protect the nation of Israel. Because when he says that, when he's asking Jehovah to rise up, that his enemies be scattered before him, he's basically, saying that the nation of Israel would be protected as well, because the enemies of Jehovah would be also enemies to the nation of Israel. So he's praying to God that as we journey throughout the wilderness, that we will be safe. And it's just a symbol, a symbolism, so to speak, of the cloud, leading us in the wilderness, which we know is God lead us in the wilderness. So when the cloud stops and it finds a resting place for the nation of Israel, that the tribes, make their formation at that location, and then Moses prays that Jehovah will return to the 10,000s of the families of Israel, meaning that, God is no longer continuing to travel, but now that we stopped, God will return it to us once again. So that's a prayer of Moses, being described
described here that, in Hebrew, we hear it a lot, where it's Kumu Yehovah, where Futu Oiveka, where Nusu Mesan Eka Mi Paneka, which once again means rise up, Yehovah, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he says, Shuva Yehovah, Revivot Al Fe Yisrael, once again being returned, O Yehovah, unto the 10,000s of the families of Yisrael. And, this prayer is not a prayer that just we read here and it just left with Moses alone. We could also say this prayer when we do have our own personal journeys. If we leave our homes, we could pray that Jehovah would go before us and scatter his enemies before us, so therefore we would be protected. And when we return home, we could also pray that Jehovah returns with us to our homes as well. So basically we're praying that wherever we go, that God would always be with us on our journeys from our homes and our journeys back to our homes, or wherever it is that we're traveling to or traveling from, we're praying that Jehovah will be with us all around.
Book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 1, the burning of Tabera. And the people were as murmurers, speaking evil in the ears of Jehovah. And when Jehovah heard it, his anger was kindled, and the fire of Jehovah burned among them, and devoured in the uttermost part of the camp. And the people cried unto Moses, and Moses prayed unto Jehovah, and the fire abated. And the name of that place was called Tabera, because of the fire of Jehovah burnt among them.
So and as the theme of Numbers in the wilderness, we'll read that the nation of Israel began to complain and murmur a lot as we're journeying. We read a lot of that murmuring and complaining when we first left out of the land of Egypt until we got to Mount Sinai. And once we got to Mount Sinai, the nation of Israel, with the exception of the situation of the golden calf, basically was at peace and was at ease, because we know that God was around us and he was providing for us. But now that we journey from Mount Sinai and we get to Tabera, which we know Tabera means burning in the Hebrew language, but whatever that name of that location was beforehand, the nation of Israel got there, and for whatever reason, it doesn't give the specific reason at this time why they was complaining and murmuring. It just says that they were speaking evil, and Jehovah heard it, and therefore, because of that evil that the nation of Israel was speaking, he caused basically a plague to go throughout the nation of Israel, burning up people in the nation of Israel, primarily those who were the complainers and those that were murmuring. And then the people had to cry out and to pray, for that release and for that ease from that burning. Basically, we have to repent when we see that things are happening to us, and we know that God is bringing these things upon us. We have to speedily turn to him and cry out to him and pray to him and repent for the things that we do. So that's what the nation of Israel did automatically, because with God being in the midst of them, and we read throughout that God's anger would burn quickly, because he's dwelling directly with the nation of Israel as we are in the wilderness. So any evil that stirs up in the nation of Israel, God quenches it real quick, with a plague, and we see people dying constantly as we read in the book of Numbers.
Verse 4, the people lust for flesh, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting. And the children of Israel also wept on their part and said, would that we were given flesh to eat. We remember the fish which were wont to eat in Egypt for naught, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all. We have naught save this manna to look to. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and the appearance thereof as the appearance of bdellium. The people went about and gathered it and ground it in mills, or beat it in mortars, and seethed it in pots, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of a cake baked with oil. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it. And Moses heard the people weeping, family by family, every man at the door of his tent. And the anger of Jehovah was kindled greatly, and Moses was displeased.
So we get to another location in the wilderness, and it mentions first that the mixed multitude, because we read in the book of Exodus that there was a mixed multitude of people, basically people from various nations that left with us when we came out of Egypt. And at this point in our journey, they began to complain. They began to murmur. And it said the nation of Israel started to murmur also on their part. they were murmuring, and that we started to take on their cry, and that basically is going to affect us because we're the ones that are leading these nations with us, but, they're complaining, and now we're following after them with their complaints. And the nation of Israel basically is cursing the bread that God has given us every morning. That's why he mentions the manna that God gave upon the ground every morning, and we read more about that in the book of Exodus chapter 16, with the description of it and also how it came on the ground. And this was something that wherever we journeyed in the desert, we had bread to eat every morning, with the exception of the Sabbath day, of course. But for 6 days in a week, we were able to eat bread every morning. And on the Sabbath day, because we collected a double portion on the 6th day, we still had food to eat on the Sabbath day. So in reality, we really had nothing to complain about. But with the nation of Israel, they just wanted that variety, and we began to complain. And we had that what's called a slave mentality, where whenever we had a problem, especially with, as we read here, we automatically wanted to return to Egypt. And we talk about the things that we had that we ate for naught in Egypt, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. And basically the nation of Israel was used to that variety, and it said that we got that for naught. But we got that off, the blood, that we had to pour out in that servitude. That's what the Egyptians were basically feeding us for free, because we had to work for them. And that's what, everybody's at this time is not realizing, that we shouldn't want to go back to that situation, that it was better for us to stay with God, keep our trust in God, knowing that he will feed us as he has been feeding us every morning. And also when we wanted water to drink at various periods of, in the desert, he brought water out of rocks or water out of anywhere for us to drink. So basically, if it came to that level, all we had to do was pray to God. But we turned instead to complain and to murmur, especially when we heard the mixed multitude in the midst of us complaining and murmuring. But that instead is only going to affect us, the nation of Israel, as we dwell here in the wilderness.
Moses complains to Yahweh. Verse 11. And Moses said unto Yahweh, Wherefore hast thou dealt ill with thy servant? And wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou layest the burden of all this people upon me? If I conceive all this people, if I brought them forth, that thou shouldest say unto me, Carry them in thy bosom, as a nursing father carrieth the sucking child, unto the land which thou didst swear unto their fathers. When shall I have flesh to give unto all this people? For they trouble me with their weeping, saying, Give us flesh that we may eat. I am not able to bear all this people myself alone, because it is too heavy for me. And if thou deal thus with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand, if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not look upon my wretchedness.
So we mentioned earlier that Moses heard everybody weeping, all of the nation, weeping in their tents, family by family. So this took a toll on Moses. We just starting our journey from Mount Sinai, we should be happy. There should be a lot of gladness in the nation of Israel as we journey. We still have food to eat. We still have water. We still have our families. And we still, dwelling, with the presence of God around us. But people starting to complain because of the lack of variety of food to eat and the variety of things to drink, that they start complaining, and Moses can't bear this. So that's why he's questioning God at this time, and he's going to continue to question God as we read in this portion. But this is basically, we're going to see a breakdown of the great man Moses, of how the complaints of the nation of Israel wore him out. And we read later on how he became angry to the point of where he misspoke in the sight of the Most High God, that caused him not to go into the land of Israel. But we could see how that happened, how we got to that point, because he's being broken down here, and he's not lashing out against the nation of Israel, but he's turning to the Most High God and praying to the Most High God, and also basically, as they say, laying his soul bare before the Most High God, asking why all of these things happening unto him. And as we read here, he would rather be dead than be alive at this point, because he can't bear the burdens of the nation of Israel. But God is going to give him a solution, for his problem as we continue reading.
Verse 16, Yahweh promises meat. And Yahweh said unto Moses, Gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be the elders of the people, and officers over them. and bring them unto the tent of meeting, that they may stand there with thee. And I will come down and speak with thee there, and I will take of the spirit of which is upon thee, and will put it upon them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with thee, that thou bear it not thyself alone. And say thou unto the people, sanctify yourselves against tomorrow, and ye shall eat flesh. For ye have wept in the ears of Yahweh, saying, would that we were given flesh to eat, for it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore Yahweh will give you flesh, and ye shall eat. Ye shall not eat 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20 days, but a whole month, until it come out of your nostrils, and it be loathsome unto you, because that ye have rejected Yahweh who is among you, and have troubled him with weeping, saying, why now come we forth out of Egypt? And Moses said, the people among whom I am are 602,000 men on foot. Yet thou hast said, I will give them flesh, that they may eat a whole month. If flocks and herds be slain for them, will it suffice them? Or if all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them, will they suffice them? And Yahweh said unto Moses, is Yahweh's hand waxed short? Now shalt thou see whether my word shall come to pass unto thee or not.
So first, with Moses crying out to the Most High God, saying how he can't bear the burden of the people, by himself, because he can't take on all these complaints. So God tells him, gather 70 elders of the nation of Israel, people who are prominent, people who are known, and he's basically going to put a portion of Moses' spirit on each of those 70 elders, and they would basically bear the responsibility of the nation of Israel with Moses. They would be the ones that would show concern. They're the ones that would hear the complaints. They're the ones that would give forth the counsel, and as we continue reading, they're the ones that are also going to prophesy along with Moses to the nation of Israel. So it's not Moses alone having to go forth and having to speak the word of God to all of these millions of people, but he's going to have help. We know he has the help in judging the nation of Israel, the tribe by tribe and by the thousands on down. But now these are elders who are going to help Moses directly with the counseling and the prophecy that has to go forth and speaking to the nation of Israel the word of God, in order to encourage them to stay strong and to make sure they don't fall weak. Because when we cry out to the Most High God in evil, it's basically, as God says, that we reject him, because we don't pray to him knowing that he can save us out of any trouble, but we pray to him with our complaints, asking why we're in the situations that we're in. But God is making it known that he has not rejected us. All we have to do is go before him properly, and also make sure that our ways are correct before him, and therefore he will save us. And also we see the toll that came upon Moses, because Moses is starting to question God at this time, because God is let it be known that he's going to give forth quail for the nation of Israel to eat. He's not going to be for a few days, but he said for a month, because basically we have to be careful what we ask for at the same time, because the things that we ask of God for, he will give it to us. And the nation of Israel at this time was crying out for meat at this time, and therefore God is going to answer and respond by giving them so much meat that, as we read here, is going to cause a plague, because he says it's going to come out of their nostrils. So we're going to eat so much that it's basically going to kill us. So this is what we asked for, and God has given us exactly what we asked for.
Verse 24, Yahweh appoints 70 to prophesy. And Moses went out and told the people the words of Yahweh. And he gathered 70 men of the elders of the people, and set them round about the tent. And Yahweh came down in the cloud, and spoke unto him, and took of the spirit that was upon him, and put it upon the 70 elders. And it came to pass that when the spirit rested upon them, they prophesied, but they did so no more. But there remained 2 men in the camp, and the name of the one was Eldad, and the name of the other Medad. And the spirit rested upon them, and they were all of them that were recorded, but had not gone out unto the tent. And they prophesied in the camp. And there ran a young man, and told Moses, and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. And Yehoshua the son of Nun, the minister of Moses, from his youth up answered and said, My Lord Moses, shut them in. And Moses said unto him, Art thou jealous for my sake? Would that all Yahweh's people were prophets, that Yahweh will put his spirit upon them. And Moses withdrew into the camp, he and the elders of Israel.
So Moses did gather the 70 elders unto him, and God took of Moses' spirit and put it upon the 70 elders, so that they will also bear the responsibility of the nation along with him. And it mentioned that, with the exception of 2, that the elders basically stayed with Moses, wherever, where he was encamped at, as they journeyed, these elders stayed with him. So when all of these complaints came to Moses, these elders were there as a defense, and as a support for Moses. Aaron, the high priest, along with Aaron's sons, they had their responsibility as priests, so they couldn't be there all the time directly with Moses, but these elders would be right there with Moses. So when people come to him with complaints, these elders would be there, to speak forth, speak their words and show their concern, for Moses, and to protect Moses so he doesn't feel like he's alone, basically, in the struggle. And the gist of the word, prophesying in the Hebrew language is basically one that inspires. It's not as, generally as we know and understand, someone that's just telling future events, of getting the word of God just to speak future events. But basically, a prophet, a nabi, as it is said in Hebrew, is basically someone that inspires, basically someone that speaks the word of God that they're, that inspires them to come forth out of them to help the nation Yisrael. So at this time, it says that, basically you have 68 elders at this time that stayed with Moses, but 2 of the elders that received the spirit of Moses upon them, Eldad and Medad, they went forth and they were still dwelling in the midst of the camp, and they were prophesying, so to speak, basically speaking the word of the Most High God to the nation of Yisrael. So they were out there, and someone came and told Moses that Eldad and Medad, or basically they're in the camp, they're prophesying. And Joshua, he stood up and he's telling Moses to shut them in, basically arrest them, take hold of them. But Moses is glad for this because he's saying he would hope that everyone in the nation of Israel would have that spirit of prophecy upon them, that they would be inspired by the Most High God, and that they would develop that strength, and therefore they won't all be complaining or murmuring as they have been doing up until this point. So Moses let them go. Moses went back to his camp along with the other 68, the remaining 68 elders that were with him, that received the spirit of Moses upon them as well, that spirit of prophecy. And basically now you have 2 people in the midst of the camp that could go forth and prophesy, or basically inspire in the midst of the nation of Israel, along with Moses being where he is.
And it reads, quails are given, verse 31. And there went forth a wind from Yahweh, and brought across quails from the sea, and let them fall by the camp, about a day's journey on this side, and a day's journey on the other side, round about the camp, and about 2 cubits above the face of the earth. And the people rose up all that day, and all the night, and all the next day, and gathered the quails. He that gathered least gathered 10 heaps, and they spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp, while the flesh was yet between their teeth, ere it was chewed. The anger of Yahweh was kindled against the people, and Yahweh smote the people with a very great plague. And the name of that place was called Kibrot Hata'ava, or Ahata'awa, because there they buried the people that lusted. From Kibrot Hata'awa, the people journeyed unto Hazeroth, and they abode at Hazeroth.
So as it mentions here that the Most High God, brought forth the word that he said that the children of Israel will receive that plague, that he brought forth the quail upon them, as he said, for a period of a month of time. And during that time, he said as soon as they started eating the quail, that God's anger was, flared up against them, and he smote them with the plague, as he has said. It was said earlier that he would give them plague, the quails, I should say, for a period of a month of time, and, it would come out of their nostrils. So now as they're eating, of the quail, that plague came upon them because God was angry with them for complaining so much and for murmuring so much that he had to, he gave them exactly what they asked for, but in so much abundance that it killed them. So once again, we have to be very careful of the things that we ask for, especially when we do it with complaining and murmuring in the sight of the Most High God, because we don't want him to give it to us in a manner that he's angry in giving it unto us, because therefore it would kill us. And it mentioned that they buried so much people that they called the place, the grave of lust. That's the, translation of Kibrot Hata'awa. It means, grave of lust. Quaver being grave, and Hata'awa meaning, those that lust. So the place, along with, we read about the place called Top Era earlier on, which meant burning, that this place, received its name basically, because of another plague that the Most High God gave to the children of Yisrael.
Chapter 12, verse 1. God punishes the sedition of Miriam and Aaron. And Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married. For he had married a Cushite woman. And they said, have Yahweh indeed spoken only with Moses? Have he not spoken also with us? And Yahweh heard it. Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men that were upon the face of the earth. And Yahweh spoke suddenly unto Moses and unto Aaron and unto Miriam, come out ye three unto the tent of meeting. And they three came out. And Yahweh came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the door of the tent of meeting and called Aaron and Miriam. And they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Yahweh, do make myself known unto him in a vision. I do speak with him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so. He is trusted in all my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth, even manifestly, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of Yahweh doth he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant, against Moses? And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against them, and he departed. And when the cloud was removed from over the tent, behold, Miriam was leprous as white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, O my Lord, lay not, I pray thee, sin upon us, for that we have done foolishly, and for that we have sinned. Let her not, I pray, be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried unto Yahweh, saying, heal her now, O God, I beseech thee.
So it mentions first that Miriam and Aaron, this is Moses' older brother and older sister, that they started speaking against Moses. So now, not only is Moses dealing with the complaints of the nation of Israel, but he has to deal with his own household as well, and the complaints and the murmurings that they have against him. But they didn't do it in his hearing, but they started speaking to each other. We know that God hears all things. So it mentions, initially that they started talking about the Cushite woman that Moses married, but based on the speech, that is written based on, or their conversation, we know that it wasn't about the Cushite woman that Moses married, but as they said, that they felt that they were in the same position as Moses, because they said that, God spoke to them also, so therefore, they felt that Moses, for whatever reason or whatever was happening at the time, they felt that Moses shouldn't have been Lord over them the way that he was, because they all received word directly from the Most High God. But God heard this and became angry because they're speaking against, this great man. It may be their brother, but he's still a great man and a prophet of the Most High God. So God is not allowing, us to speak against any of his prophets. As this, we read in the Psalm, of King David, where God says, touch my anointed and do my prophets no harm. So touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. So it's not only on a physical level, but we also not allowed to speak against the prophets of the Most High God, or those that were anointed, with the command of the Most High God. So God steps to Aaron, to Miriam, and he also calls Moses into this meeting at the same time. But he's going to basically chastise Miriam and Aaron because of the way they were speaking about Moses. And God let them know directly that Moses is not like them. That when God speaks to a prophet, he speaks to them through visions, he speaks to them through dreams. But as it says here, that God speaks to Moses mouth to mouth. And in some places we read where it's translated as also face to face. That means that Moses is fully awake and fully aware of his surroundings while he's having a conversation with the Most High God, as though he's talking to, a human being, while he's awake. That God may say something, Moses hears it, and Moses is able to respond. Even as we read here, where God is speaking to Aaron and Miriam, they're not, responding back to God. They don't have that relationship where God tells them something and they have a, basically a back and forth conversation as though they're speaking to a human being. But God is making them know that that's how he relates to Moses. We read, in the previous portion that God spoke to Moses, from the ark cover. Not that Moses, went into the Holy of Holies, but he went into the Holies in the tent of meeting, and that's the direction that God spoke to him, and he was able to receive word directly from the Most High God and be able to respond. And we see basically, it's called dialogue between Yahweh and Moses all throughout the Holy Scriptures, where God would say something and Moses would immediately respond, and they would be able to talk that way. And Moses is doing that while he's awake. Whenever we read about prophets, having dialogue with the Most High God, is usually while they're dreaming, or God appears to them in a vision. But that's not how he appears to Moses. So the Most High God is making Miriam and Aaron know that when he appears to Moses, that's how he does it. But when he speaks to them, they must realize that he speaks to them in a different manner. And also because they spoke against Moses, Miriam was plagued with leprosy at this time. And Aaron, seeing this, automatically, started crying out to Moses, asking for forgiveness for what they did, and also asking that he would pray on her behalf, that she may be healed. The question may come up, why did Miriam get plagued with leprosy as opposed to Aaron when they were both speaking? And that, any answer with that would always be speculation. But God still had to bring forth his punishment as well, and Miriam was the one that was punished, at this time. And Moses, being a humble person, it said that he was the meekest man on all the earth, that he would pray, for people, even though people may do him wrong, he would still go forth to the Most High God and pray on their behalf. And we read, all throughout the book where Moses prayed to the Most High God on behalf of the children of Israel. There were times where the Most High God would, wanted to wipe out the entire nation of Israel and just leave Moses alive, but Moses didn't want that. He continued to pray on behalf of the Most High God, even though we did evil in the sight of the Most High God.
Verse 14, Miriam is shut out of the camp. And Yahweh said unto Moses, if her father has but spit in her face, should she not hide in shame 7 days? Let her be shut up without the camp 7 days, and after that she shall be brought in again. And Miriam was shut up without the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterward the people journeyed from Hazeroth and pitched in the wilderness of Paran. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. So Moses did pray to the Most High God on behalf of his sister Miriam, regardless of what she may have said about him, and God heard his prayer. But God's, justice always has to be done. God always brings forth his judgment, for anything that we do. There's rewards when we do good, and there's rebuke when we do evil. So God heard the prayer of Moses, but he still said that she still has to dwell in her leprosy for 7 days. That's basically her punishment. So it's not that she's going to have an everlasting leprosy, where she stays out of the camp for the rest of her life. But she still has to spend 7 days out of the camp so she could, consider, the things that she said and the things that she did. And then after those 7 days, she was brought into the camp once again. And it mentioned that the camp, the entire nation of Israel didn't journey until she was brought back in. And basically she was brought back in, and we read it in the book of Leviticus chapter 14, the portion called Metzora of the process. Miriam still had to go through that procedure, of being cleansed of her leprosy, the ritual that she had to go through and the offerings that she had to bring forth. It doesn't specify here, but we know that that's the procedure for someone that had leprosy to come back into the camp. So as we read in this portion, that as soon as we left from Mount Sinai, that problem started to enter into the nation of Israel once again. That God was, we see God's presence among us, But for every little thing, we started to complain. But us as the nation of Israel have to learn from these lessons and not reject God, but learn to accept God and accept the fact that he could save us out of any situation and that he hears our cries in any situation. And we also have to follow the example of the great man Moses, of how, his meekness, meaning that he would still pray to the Most High God, for those that would speak against him. That shows much humility, that you would still look out for the well-being of another person that may be trying to do you harm. Especially, this is not a harm that they were trying to take his life. That would be a different situation where a person would have to defend himself. But when people are against you and you still have it within you to pray on their behalf and make sure that they do well, that's the blessing of the Most High God that will come upon any of us that is able to do so. So we thank the Most High God for the opportunity to read through his word, to obtain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, asking that he would continue to give us the truth of his word, and especially for the nation of Israel to dwell within his word, to understand his precepts, and to live in truth. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.